This vacation house is only for my mom and dad. Your parents can't stay here, my husband declared, surprising me with his words after buying a fancy vacation house worth $1 million. So that's what this is all about. I realized his intentions and felt fed up. Okay, but you'll regret this decision, I warned him. Never come near me again, Terry smirked, folding his arms. If that's how it is, I won't be nice either. I'll make him sorry. My name's Kathy. I married Robert 4 years ago and we've been living together happily. We don't really have any hobbies, so we've been saving a lot of money. If I had to pick one thing we splurge on, it's probably making fancy coffee on weekends. Oh, by the way, isn't your mom's birthday coming up soon? I asked Robert while holding a freshly brewed cup of coffee. We're both in our mid-30s. Robert's parents just turned 60 this year, a year before mine. What if we give them a spa getaway as a birthday gift? It could be a lovely treat, don't you think? I suggested. Robert thought it was a good idea, saying that sounds nice. I'll check with my parents if they have any specific wishes. If not, we'll go with a spa retreat. It's like hitting 2 birds with 1 stone. I didn't mean it that way, I clarified. I know, just kidding. Next time I see my parents, I'll bring it up with them. Kathy, can you find some good spas? Robert asked me. Sure thing. How about we join them on the trip? It'd be a nice change, I suggested. 2 weeks went by, and my mother-in-law's birthday was approaching quickly. We should book the spa soon. Otherwise, we might not make it in time for my father-in-law's birthday. Did you talk to your parents? I asked anxiously. My husband replied casually, oh, I forgot to mention. I already checked with them, so no need to book the spa retreat. Oh, really? That's a relief. But what did they say they wanted? I was eager to decide the gift together, but my husband seemed bothered by the question. I'll take care of it. It's my parents' 60th birthday. You don't have to worry about it, Kathy, he said, dismissing my involvement. Robert's words took me aback. He'd never dismissed me like this before. That wasn't very nice, I said, feeling emotional. Why won't you tell me? We've always chosen gifts together. We've even picked gifts for each other's parents in the past. So why, on such an important occasion like their 60th birthday, would you shut me out like this? I don't understand, I said, frustration creeping in. Normally I'm pretty calm and don't raise my voice often, but my husband remained stubborn. In the end, he wouldn't budge on telling me what his parents wanted. Since then, there's been tension between us, and we only talk about necessary things. Even when we drink our morning coffee, the silence hangs heavy. The day before my mother-in-law's birthday, my husband finally spoke to me after a long silence. We're going out tomorrow to celebrate Mom's 60th. Get ready, Kathy. We're staying overnight, so be prepared, he informed me. When he sprung the news on me, I panicked. What? Where are we going? You should have told me earlier if we're staying overnight. I need time to prepare. I just told you, didn't I? You're going to be surprised, my husband replied cheerfully, contrasting my anxiety. The next morning, we hopped into the car early to pick up my in-laws. They were bursting with excitement from the moment we saw them. I'm so thrilled. I never imagined celebrating my birthday like this. Thank you so much, they exclaimed. Isn't it wonderful? My husband asked. Absolutely, thank you so much, Robert, I replied, feeling a bit awkward since I hadn't been part of choosing the gift. Even when my in-laws expressed their gratitude, I could only respond vaguely. Then, unexpectedly, my husband spoke up. It's all thanks to Kathy. Thank you, he said, supporting me. I was touched by his consideration. Despite our recent disagreements, it felt like we were getting back to our old selves. My mood lifted, and I decided to enjoy the journey to our destination. We arrived at a beautiful cabin nestled in the woods. The entrance was spacious, and the living room had huge glass windows, giving it a charming appeal. Surrounded by trees, the cabin felt like it blended perfectly with nature. There were 3 bedrooms and even a hot tub in the bathroom. This is where we're staying. It's so beautiful, I said excitedly to my husband, expressing regret for my earlier attitude. I never imagined Robert would pick such an amazing place. I don't think I could have found such a gem myself. Trusting Robert with the decision was definitely the right call. I'm sorry for being so cranky lately, I admitted, feeling a surge of excitement as I took in the beauty of the cabin. Then, out of the blue, my husband said something unexpected. It's no big deal. If it were just me, I wouldn't have been able to afford this cabin. It's all thanks to Kathy that we have it. What? I was suddenly speechless. As my mind raced with questions, my in-laws chimed in. Thank you, Kathy. We never expected such a wonderful gift, did we? We were thinking about getting a new place for ourselves when we turned 60, even considering living together. But remember, we decided against that, right? So we thought a cabin would be perfect, and we've been discussing it with Robert since he got married. It was true that I turned down the idea of living together once. I wanted to savor our time as a couple, and my in-laws were still healthy, so I felt it was too soon for us to move in together. Robert agreed, and we decided we'd move in together when my in-laws needed assistance. But I never expected them to request a new home as a gift for their 60th birthday, let alone a cabin. That felt like a bit much. Trying to keep my panic at bay, I turned to my husband. Robert, you're kidding, right? There's no way we could afford such a beautiful cabin. Why spring a surprise on me? It's your mom's birthday. The surprise should be for her. It's not a joke. We really bought this cabin, my husband replied. Everything seemed to blur before my eyes. In a daze, I heard him continue. It was a lifesaver, really. They said I couldn't get a mortgage based on my income alone. Getting a joint mortgage was the right call. Wait a minute. I had no idea about any of this, I exclaimed. And it's not fair to just spring it on me like this. You just said it was a lovely cabin. It's ours. That's not the point. How much did this vacation home cost? I vented my frustration at him, and he dropped a bombshell. $1 million. What? $1 million? And you spent it on my parents' 60th birthday? I couldn't believe it. The amount was staggering, leaving me reeling. To make matters worse, my husband revealed another shocking fact. We couldn't get a loan for $1 million property in both our names, so I used all our savings since we got married, the joint account, as a down payment, he admitted. What? At this point, I was beyond shocked and simply speechless. How could he make such a selfish decision without even consulting me? I couldn't comprehend it at all. Despite my disbelief, my husband continued casually, Well, it's done now. There's no going back. And I did take your preference of not living together into account, didn't I? With this vacation home, we can do whatever we want. Our vacations will be even better, right? His nonchalant attitude was incredibly frustrating. But now that it's done, there's no going back, Robert said, echoing my own thoughts. The vacation home was undeniably beautiful, and it would certainly enhance our holiday experiences. Fine, it's already done, so there's no point dwelling on it. But you should have at least talked to me about it, I said with a sigh. Surprisingly, my husband's mood lifted, and he chuckled. You're right, I should have consulted you. I'm sorry. I wanted it to be a surprise for you too, Kathy. You're something else. Learning that Robert had taken out a joint mortgage without telling me, even using our shared savings, was a shock. Let's just accept it and see it as a good investment, I decided. With that resolution, I chose to enjoy the lavish celebration for my mother-in-law's birthday and our 2-day stay at the villa. As I brewed a cup of coffee, I found myself lost in memories of our time at the villa. Despite the initial shock, it truly was a magnificent place. The wood-burning stove in the living room especially stood out, promising cozy winter evenings. Feeling content, I turned to Robert. Hey, when can we go back to the villa? I want to pick out some new dishes for it. Yeah, I'll ask my parents about it, he replied. Can't we just go by ourselves? I suggested. Technically, the villa is in our names, even though it was a gift for my parents' 60th anniversary. It wouldn't be right if they already had plans, would it? A sense of unease crept over me. Despite being in our names, I worried that practically it might end up being more like my in-laws' property. Thinking fast, I proposed, since it's our villa, can't we invite my parents to join us too? Yeah, if they're free, he replied vaguely, but at least he didn't outright refuse. That was a relief. It meant the villa wouldn't just become my in-laws' property. However, my optimism was short-lived. For the past 6 months, I hadn't been allowed to spend the night at the villa. I could visit during the day, drop off my in-laws, prepare food, and then head back home, only to return the next day to pick them up, clean up, and drive them back. This routine had persisted despite my numerous complaints, with Robert always finding some excuse or even yelling at me. But today, I wasn't going to give up, especially since my parents' birthday was approaching. Robert, my father's birthday is in 2 months. Can't we invite them to the villa? It's our villa, I stressed, hoping to appeal to him. But his response was the same as always. If my parents don't have plans, it'll be the same story. We haven't spent a single night at the villa in the 6 months since we bought it. Your parents always get priority. But it's our villa and we should come first. Besides, I'm the one paying the mortgage and the down payment. My parents should have their turn too. Today, I'm not giving in. I've had enough, I asserted firmly, only to be met with a scowl from Robert. Shut up. That vacation house is only for my parents. I won't allow your parents to use it. I bet that was your plan all along, wasn't it? No wonder you bought it without telling me, he accused. The patience I had clung to shattered in my heart, leaving behind a sense of brokenness. I'll never forgive you, I vowed. Don't think you can act so selfishly without consequences. I challenged my husband. Fine, if that's how it is, I won't hold back anymore. Let's get a divorce. What? You're so petty, he retorted. Well, whatever. My parents appreciate me for buying that vacation home, and my mom can handle the housework. I'll be just fine without you. And if we're divorcing, I won't let you near that vacation house. Is that clear? With a smug look, he crossed his arms triumphantly. I felt foolish for falling for his smooth words, but it was too late for regrets. All that remained was to seek my revenge. In a low voice, I pressed my husband. Are you sure you'll regret this? Because I won't hesitate. Fine, it's settled then. Never shove your face in front of me again, he replied. The next day, I filed for divorce, and it was accepted without any issues. I decided to walk back to my parents' house. A few months later, I received a call from Robert's house. When I answered, he sounded panicked. Kathy, what do you want? We don't have anything to talk about, he said in a frantic tone. In response to my cold response, he yelled back, I tried calling your cell phone. Why didn't you answer? Some person claiming to be your lawyer showed up at my house today. This is what you wanted, isn't it? Can you explain it to me properly? Don't you understand? I replied calmly. What's there to understand? He snapped back. The lawyer was right. Since we're divorced, I don't plan on paying the mortgage anymore. If you don't agree, I might sell the vacation house. That's it. But the vacation house is in both our names. Even after the divorce, isn't it fair for you to keep paying the mortgage? I questioned. My ex-husband seemed at a loss for words. Despite being in both our names, I'm not allowed to use it, right? So why should I keep paying for it? That doesn't make sense to me, I stated calmly. No, it's a joint property, so we should both contribute, I argued. This conversation isn't going anywhere. That's why I consulted a lawyer. If you're going to stick to your stance, I'm ending this call. If you need anything else, talk to my lawyer. I don't have time to deal with this unreasonable behavior. I have my own affairs to attend to. Wait, hold on. I messed up. How about we take turns using the vacation house? I suggested. You mean I keep paying the mortgage and you let me use it sometimes, he clarified. I don't have any attachment to that vacation house anymore. I've already bought a new one, he revealed. Wait, what? I exclaimed. Yes, I gifted the vacation house to my parents for their 60th birthday. It's not $1 million estate, but a cozy cottage they love. Are we done here? I don't have time for small talk, he said firmly. Wait, please, I interjected. I resigned from my job, he informed me. What? Why? I asked. It was probably my father's doing, right? He's an executive in a top-tier company with many connections. Robert's company president is one of them, he explained. It seems my father had a word with Robert's company president about his behavior towards me. How can we tolerate such behavior in our company? The president must have exclaimed in anger. I don't know all the details, but I heard that Robert chose to resign voluntarily. I'm certain there was some intervention from Robert's company president behind the scenes. Please help me, Robert pleaded tearfully. My coworkers started giving me hostile looks. I made the decision to resign. I found a new job, but the salary is lower than before. I can't manage the mortgage payments on my own. Your father caused all this, right? Then shouldn't he take responsibility and keep paying the mortgage? He's so selfish, I lamented. How much further will he go to satisfy his own desires? I couldn't bear his selfishness any longer. Sure, my father might have played a role in me quitting my job. But you, Robert, are the one who started it all, aren't you? Don't try to twist the narrative to fit your agenda. You're the one in the wrong for tampering with our joint property just to impress your parents. You brought this upon yourself. I never imagined it would come to this. You're facing the consequences of your actions. I hope you suffer in the depths of mortgage hell. You selfish jerk. I heard his desperate plea, but I hung up the phone without giving it another thought. In the months that followed, I worked with a lawyer and managed to extricate myself from the mortgage for the vacation house. Eventually, Robert couldn't keep up with the mortgage payments alone, and the property ended up being sold due to its decreased value. It appeared that Robert had accumulated debt and was now struggling to make ends meet in a modest apartment. Even his in-laws were shocked by the turn of events, and Robert's parents found themselves facing scrutiny from the community for losing the vacation house they had once bragged about. Meanwhile, I found fulfillment in my role as the vice president of my father's company, leading busy and rewarding days. The happiest moments now come when the three of us, myself, my husband, and our daughter, visit the vacation house on our days off, enjoying moments of relaxation with a cup of coffee.
All right, everyone's presentations are done, Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look, "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day." Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. "So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. "Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them." It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, what's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike. What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.